In this video, we're going to show you to install brakes on your Nissan Frontier located behind your rear wheels. Using a 21mm socket, go ahead and loosen and remove your lug nuts. Go ahead and grab your wheel and set it aside. With the wheel off, we want to go ahead and remove our brake caliper and brake caliper bracket. We're going to use our 14mm socket to loosen these two slider pin bolts. Now, if the bolt is spinning with the pin inside here, you can use a wrench on the inside to hold that. In our case here, the bolt is spinning freely and coming out. There you go. Go ahead and set that aside. Let's go ahead and get the upper one. Now, when we remove this caliper, we are going to want to go ahead and secure it. We don't want to have this hanging by the flex hose here. You can damage the flex hose and cause further issues. Gonna remove that bolt. I'm gonna use a small pry bar here to go ahead and work this off. You can bring this up on top. Set it up here. It's always a good idea to go ahead and use like a securing strap or something to hold that up in place so that doesn't fall down. Now, our caliper bracket itself is held on by two 19mm bolts, one here, one up top. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove these. Now, I'm removing the bottom one first, because once you remove the upper one, the caliper bracket will normally want to just fall off. So for safety reasons, we like to just get that bottom one out first. There's that lower bolt. And do the same for the upper. When you're doing this here, you want to be careful of the ABS wire. You don't want to keep on hitting that with your ratchet and damage this wire. You're going to end up with an ABS light on the dash and you'll have to replace that. So just be careful, be conscious of that. You may be sitting beside the vehicle while doing this, so you're going to use the ratchet going upward. Keep you away from that ABS wire. You can see that caliper bracket popping off. Also be aware the brake rotor will now be loose, so be careful of that as well. Remove that bolt. Carefully work the bracket off, sliding that off of the rotor. There we have it. Once you have that bracket off, remove that brake rotor. Now, underneath that brake rotor, you're going to find your emergency brake shoes and hardware, everything here. Now, you want to go ahead and do a quick inspection of the e-brake shoes. You want to check the thickness of the e-brake shoes themselves, the material, these are good. Check both bottom as well. Make sure they're evenly worn. If they're wearing uneven, you definitely want to go ahead and replace them at this time here before you reassemble everything. After you've done your visual inspection, let's go ahead and spray this down with some spray solvent. We do have a catch can underneath the vehicle to go ahead and catch this here. And what we're doing is just clean off any of the brake residue, the powder that's in here. Once again, once this dries, it'd be just a couple minutes, do another visual inspection. Check the adjuster wheel, check the springs, make sure there's nothing broken or dangling underneath here. If so, address that situation by purchasing the e-brake shoes and the hardware kit before you install your new brakes. Let's go ahead and clean up our caliper bracket itself. If your brake pads are still stuck in there, go ahead and knock those out. Now our inboard pad is the one that has the two sliders on there that has our squeak tabs on there. So when installing the new pads, you want to make sure that the inboard pad has the squeak tabs on it. Go ahead and pop out your sliders here. We have our slide pins here. Now these should be spinning freehand, nice and loose. If they're stuck, at that point there, you want to go ahead and put the bracket itself into a vise, and you want to go ahead and use some pliers or a wrench on this to try and loosen this up to make that spin free. Now our goal here is to go ahead and hold that rubber boot, grab the slide pin and spin that out like so. I'm going to do the same for the rearward one here. Pop that out, and it's okay if that rubber boot pops off like that. We're just going to slide that off with the pin. Now this pin here has a rubber sleeve on it, so we want to make sure that when you install these here that this goes in the same port. So I'm going to position this down below, this one up top that does not have the rubber sleeve, and we want to pull off our rubber boots. This has some little notches on it that will go onto the caliper itself, or the caliper bracket. Go ahead and work this off. Now you want to carefully inspect these rubber boots, rotate them, pinch them, and look for any tears, splits, anything like that. If they are damaged, you definitely want to go ahead and replace these at this time. They are identical, so just put one with each of your slide pins. Now that we have our bracket pretty much stripped down, go ahead and grab your bristle brush. Definitely be wearing safety glasses when doing this here. And what we're doing is we're cleaning where our metal slides were placed. We clean up any crunchy rust that might be on there, because when we install the new ones, you want to make sure that it has a nice, smooth surface for that to clip into. Now, if you do have scaly rust in here, go ahead and use a flat file. Go ahead and clean this out in here. Make sure that that is clean of any large pieces of rusty debris. Flip this over. Do the same on this side. Go ahead and clean that up. I'm going to flip this back over this way because that's the way we had it for our pin placement. Clean the inside of the slide pin ports. Use some spray solvent. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses. Spray some solvent in there. Use a bore brush. Go in and out of there. And what you're doing is basically cleaning out any old grease or anything in there. Going to repeat for the other port as well. I'm just going to tip that, let that drain out and dry. Now we can focus on our slide pins here. Good, give those a wipe down. Inspect the slide pins. You do not want to have any grooves or anything like that in there. Also make sure that the rubber sleeve here is in good condition. It spins, it's not worn, torn, or anything like that. You do want to focus on the backside of the nut here. You want to clean this up. You can use a wire brush like this here, or you can use a powered wire wheel and clean this up. We're going to go ahead and do the same to the upper pin. Now we have our new pad slides here. Our bracket is in good shape. Let's go ahead and start to assemble this. Take a little bit of grease. Now this is a little bit of a silicone paste here. Now we're not going to cake this on. We want just a thin coat on this. So just put a little bit on here, smear it around. Then you're going to take this unit here. Make sure you install that properly. Line that up and push that in. Go ahead and press that into place. It's going to repeat for the other side. With both of these installed, we can now focus on installing the slide pins and boots. So go ahead and take your rubber boots here. Try and clean the insides of these here. I want to go ahead and pop these onto the caliper bracket. Now we do want to go ahead and lubricate these here. You don't want to put too much on there. Just a thin coat. Go ahead and work that in. Spin that around, and then you're just going to push that in onto the rubber boot. Spin that, work that in and out, and you should feel that working nice and free. We're going to do the same for this one here. Thin coat. Here we go. Get that in there, spin that around. Now our caliper bracket is ready to install. Before we install our brake rotor, let's go ahead and prepare the hub face here. Use a wire brush, bristle brush, and want to go around the perimeter here, making sure that when we install that brake rotor, it fits around nice and tight around here without having any debris causing it not to fit flush. Once you're done with that, spray it down with some solvent. Clean that off. Then go ahead and let that dry up. Our next step is to apply some anti-seize compound to the hub face so that our brake rotor does not ever rust to this. Just cut out a piece of cardboard here. That way there you don't get anything on the e-brakes. Grab your brake rotor, line that up, push it on, make sure it fits on flush. And I'm going to install one lug nut that'll hold the brake rotor in place. Now this particular type of brake rotor is a directional. It is a cross-drilled slotted performance rotor. You can see that the holes come up in a scooping pattern. You do not want that to go face down. So make sure you install these correctly. If you have a standard flat face rotor, you definitely want to go ahead and use some spray solvent, clean off any of the oils that are on there from shipping to protect the surface of that. These are specially coated as they are a performance rotor. Now at this point, we want to go ahead and gain access to our brake caliper itself. I'm going to go ahead and remove our securing strap. And what we want to do is we want to compress this piston into the caliper itself. We're going to use our tool for this. You know, sometimes what might be easier to do on this when you're compressing this in is loosen the bleeder screw. That is going to relieve the pressure of the fluid behind the piston itself. We're going to use our 10mm box end wrench. Gently loosen this. Now we do have a catch can underneath to catch the brake fluid. Open that up, you see the fluid coming out. And as you compress it, that fluid will slowly come out. Now, compress this in until the piston is fully inside the caliper itself. The rubber boot will collapse around the perimeter. And once this is flush inside, you can go ahead and tighten down. Go ahead and tighten down that bleeder screw. Remove your tool. Once you have that piston compressed, go ahead and re-secure this. Install your bracket. Get our upper bolt started first, that way there we can let it drop down. Once you have both of these started, let's go ahead and tighten them down. Install your inboard pad. Inboard pad has a squeak tab on it. Go ahead and slide that into place. Outboard pad does not have the squeak tab on it. Push it in an angle, slide it in. We're going to remove our securing strap. Bring this around and push your slide pins in. Get our bolt started on here. Let's go ahead and snug down our bolts. We're using a 14mm socket for this. Torque down our caliper bracket bolts to 63 foot-pounds. Torque down our slide pin bolts to 20 foot-pounds. Remove the lug nut. Take your wheel, line it up. Set that into place. Go line up your center cap if you have this. Once you have all of those started by hand, let's go ahead and snug them down. Go ahead and torque down your lug nuts to 98 foot-pounds. Ideally, you want to go ahead and try and do this in a crisscross pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.